Hello again, and welcome to Winning with the Wrangler at Dick Powell's Leadership Corner, brought to you by Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training and Development, where our passion is building leaders of today and tomorrow. Leaders, we gather the information on this program from many different places and many different people. Please, if you hear yourself in our conversation today, know that it's not all about you. Now, in the past, some of you have taken some offense to some things we've said, and really that's okay. Because I encourage you to call in or write in with something that maybe we said that you didn't agree with, or something we can change. Or maybe even a topic that you'd like to have us address here at the Leadership Corner. Today, though, I have to tell you, it's kind of a sad day. This weekend, there's been 3 mass shootings. And it seems like no one knows what we need to do about it. I see a lot of finger pointing of, it's this person's fault, it's that person's fault, it's the government's fault, and no one's doing anything, and blah, blah, blah. Leaders, I think that we know where we need to start with this discussion. You see, things that our young people learn really pretty much are set by the time they're 4 or 5 years old. Now, what does that mean? I know 100 years ago, mothers stayed home and raised the children. And there was a special time in that 1 to 5 year old time before they went to school, first grade, when they were about 6, that there was a lot of morals and values instilled. They had learned to play with others. They had learned to share. And even, I believe, in that time, people were teaching about money and how it was important and how you had to work for it. I believe there were some basic values being taught in that time. Now, look, I'm not putting down anybody that mothers out there working. Please don't misunderstand. My daughter's a working mother, and she puts a lot of time and effort into her child. What I'm saying is that first 5 years is so darn important. And not only does the mother need to be there, but the father needs to be involved. It needs to be a 2-parent opportunity. Now, that's really where this needs to start. The next place we need to encourage, and I'm going to sound like a preacher on Sunday, I'm sure, when you hear this, I believe it needs to start in our churches. Again, it needs to be a program for our young people to start learning values and morals. This is where it all starts. It's between that 4 and 5 year old that these things become really part of their life. Hard work, no bullying, all those types and pieces. What I'm seeing, though, and I'm not pointing any fingers, I think it's very hard for people today to try to say to themselves, well, we're going to have a 1-income family. And they're saying, well, you can't do it. Well, before you beat me up, you have to realize that Miss Robin and I made that decision many years ago, and there was a lot of things that we did without. There was a lot of things we had to wait for. There was a lot of things that we had to put on the back burner, so to speak, until after the children were grown. Those were the sacrifices we were willing to make. Now, there were many people who were around us that they gave Miss Robin and I a really hard time because she stayed home and raised our children. And by the way, other people's children at the same time. I was willing to work maybe 2, 3 jobs at some times to ensure that the family was held together and done those things. When I became a Cub Master, when our son entered into Cub Scouts, because I was the kid who grew up in Boy Scouts and I was not going to volunteer, I sat in the back of the room with my son And they stood at the front of the room and said, you know, if we don't have a Cub Master, by golly, we're going to close down the pack and we won't be able to have this. And is there anyone out there be willing to do it? And of course, my son jumped up and volunteered me. And you know what? It was a wonderful time. The sacrifices, though, that had to be made were some overtime, a lot of weekends, a lot of time away from the house. The important part, though, was I was spending time with my wife at meetings. I was spending time with my daughter at meetings. I was spending time with my son. Those incorporations of time spent is what really started to make the difference. When I was a Cub Master, we went from a pack of 25 to 100 in a couple of years. And what we noticed in those 3 or 4 years was in the beginning, there was a lot of moms and dads both involved. And we would have a pack, meaning, you know what, there'd be a lot of moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas that would show up to the pack meeting. At the end of my tenure as a Cub Master, which ran 4.5 some years, that number shrank. We saw more and more people who were what we call run by and drop offs. Very few fathers showed up. And the program had to realign because without moms stepping in, we definitely would have had to close the situation. So what I'm saying to you is what are you willing to involve yourself with? What are you willing to do as a citizen to help stop this mass shooting? Now, the letter that I received is over here on my other monitor. And I have to tell you that it disturbed me so much that they said, hey, you know what, it's all this hate and anger. And well, that's part of it. But I believe it still starts at home. A well-meaning pastor who is a friend of mine, he said that there was just no solutions to this problem. That got me thinking. The solution is that each one of us needs to take and stand up and take some accountability. Instead of pointing fingers at one another who didn't do what, when, where, how. Each of us need to really say, what are we going to each do? So here are some suggestions that I'm going to put forth. That well, you know what? If you don't agree with them and you want to beat me up, hey, call me, send me an email. It's okay. Because this is what I'm talking about, is really some conversation on what we as individuals can do to make this change in our country today. One of the solutions, or one of the opportunities, I'm going to say, I believe, is having some instruction classes for parenting. Now, I think these classes should be opened not just for parents. I think they should be for prospective parents, parents right now, grandparents, even great-grandparents, and people who fill in as parents when there needs to be a fill-in. You see, I believe that if we can all kind of come to some solutions on how the good way to raise children. Here's the situation, ladies and gentlemen. In the past, those things were passed on from mother to father to mother to father on down the line as people had children. We were in organizations and opportunities where those things were preached and they were also taught. And all of a sudden, we decided that we could do it all on our own and we didn't need any of that information. And then someone came out and said, you know, it took a city to take and raise a child or whatever. But it's true, that does. But everybody, for the most part, needs to be on the same page with the same morals and values. And there lies the crux. Learning about each child and what their learning opportunity is. There's 7 different learning styles, and each child is different. Each adult's different. And learning how to speak with one another in those learning styles, I have to tell you, will change our communications with one another. It starts at home. It starts where people can go and learn how to be a better parent. You see, I believe in my heart that when we do this, it takes away the poor little old me syndrome and starts to even remove the, everybody feeling sorry for one another. It means that we have to intentionally take accountability for each of our actions individually and for our children. Now, I'm going to caution you that once your child goes to school, it seems like we lose a lot of that control. They're at a public school system, and that is in their world. When they go off to college, my biggest prayer every day was that my children would come home from college smart and not stupid. Not book learning stupid, but stupid in the ways of the world and how things really worked. The other solution that I'd like to offer, an opportunity, a thought process, you might say, is I would like for adults to look at these games that these young people are playing on the tablets and on the computer. Violent head games that are on the computer and on their phones. But you know what? Now I see them even on television. The other night, Robin turned on the television, and here was a television show that's going to be on every night. It was called Love Something. It was the most indecent thing I'd seen on TV in a long time. Girls and young men sleeping together before marriage, which is my view, but on public TV, dressed scantily and dressed and speaking in, I'm just telling you, it was just rude. But if that's what those young people are seeing, it becomes that's normal. When young people hear adults speak in four-letter language, and then some psychologist says, hey, you ought to listen to people who cuss more because they're smarter. That's a problem. You see, vulgarity doesn't add anything to your conversation. It adds nothing to the conversation. Nothing. And it takes and dumbs down the way we interact with one another. On their tablets and on their phones, there's all these dad burn emojis. And I want you to think about that as an adult. I don't have to spell it out because spell check will check it. I don't have to say it out because someone else will say it for me. I don't even have to think about it because it gives me a choice of what to take and pick, A, B, C, or D. Leaders, we are not doing anyone a favor by supporting these things. We're not doing anyone a favor by not standing up and saying, what's on TV today is just terrible. Now, of course, here at my household, we have a rule. If it's terrible, we just turn it off. And that's the way we do things. But I believe that so many people are being indoctrinated by these things. I saw that Survivor had been on for 30 years. What a waste of talent and humanity. Holy moly, Andy. What a waste. But that was 30 years of people seeing people playing games, lying, cheating, stealing. What did they learn? So those games are more than that. You see, when we were playing games on how to hunt and track and fish and those kind of things, it meant you were feeding your family. Not so much now, it doesn't. I was talking to a young person here the other day, and I asked them where their food came from, and they said this grocery store. I said, have you never been to a farm and seen corn grow on a stalk and shuck it back? And they had never seen anything like that. They had only seen cans of frozen things. It's kind of sad. The next solution or opportunity I want to put forth is that every young person, and believe me, I never thought I would admit to this, but every young person at the age of 18 would go and report and do some kind of public service for a minimum of 2 years. Now, that's whether they were going to join the service or they were going to maybe work at a national park or some kind of other opportunity in their city, state, or nation. But I believe if they, at 18, went and did that, first of all, they would learn some things that they're not learning in college. One is that hard work is not terrible. Dirt on your fingernails will wash off. And the long term of putting off buying something instead of immediate gratification really does pay off in the long run. Here again, if you'd known me when I was younger, you'd probably say, boy, I can't believe he's saying that. But here I am. These are just starters, I'm sure, that we're looking into in our world. I have volunteered at our church to teach all these things. I am looking forward to passing on that knowledge and making sure that the next generation really has something different to look at. Now, when I'm going to be doing these instructional opportunities, I'm not going to use a video. I'm not going to use an overhead. I'm not going to use a PowerPoint. I'm going to use personal interaction. I know what a crazy thought process that is. To actually sit and talk with someone face to face. To be able to disagree and still walk away friends. To be able to listen to one another thoroughly before we make a decision. These are the things that I truly pray that will happen. I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and he said that one of the biggest fallacies in life is that money is free and easy to come by. And he said, you know, Dick, he said, money is easy. He said, you know, your grandfather raised you and he raised me, and he said the same thing. He said, money is easy to come by. All you got to do is get off your dead butt and work for it. Well, what he meant by that was there was many different kinds of work. But he said you had to be productive for two reasons. One, when you're productive, it really does make you feel productive. It makes you feel good. And second, you're adding to something good in humanity. Those two things are what we should be, could be, ought to be teaching and instructing our young people. But ladies and gentlemen, leaders, it can't just be a certain age that we're going to reach out to. We're going to need to reach out to people my age and below and above, because the influence of that generation can be great if we're willing to stick our neck out and do it. It won't be easy, and sometimes it won't be fun. If you talk to Miss Robin, she'll tell you there's many nights I come home pretty darn frustrated because I wasn't able to get the message across. And I've had to go back the next week and reiterate and redo until I found a way that reverberated with each and every person in the room. He went on to take and tell me, this gentleman, about money. He said the biggest fallacy about money is that it's bad. I know I grew up in a household with a mom who beat it into us that if anybody had money must have gotten it, illegally or under the table. She truly believed that. Unfortunately, that's just not true. There is a truth, though. I truly believe that some people that do have money do not want other people to know how to use that. You see, money is just a tool. It's not either good or bad. It's how you use it. I have a good mentor who taught us, over 30 years ago, how to live on 60% of our income, which wasn't much with only one working, just so you know. And put away 10% for long term and put away 10% for emergencies and all those kind of things. And if you'd like to know those numbers, give me a call or send me an email and I'll make sure they get to you. Here's the point of the matter. When we learned how not to spend money, how to take the poverty mentality and shove it aside. That we were always wealthy, maybe not with money, but other things. That's when it started to change in this household. But here's what we learned. We had to make sure that we hung around, went around, were around other people that were in the same opportunity or better. We were always continuously learning, and still are. That's the difference. So when I put forth these couple of things that I believe they're not 100% solutions. These are just starters. They're not going to take and change the world tomorrow. But I do believe that they're a place to start. I do believe that we can put them into our churches. And we can take and open them to the public so everyone has an opportunity. Now, we can't make anyone go to class. We can't make anyone do anything. But I truly believe as people start coming, they're going to start talking to the people around them. And as they do that, each one teach one is going to spread the knowledge of parental units on how to be a parental person. Not just when we have our children, but as grandparents, as great-grandparents, as parents to children on the block who don't have parents paying attention to them. I know that sounds funny, but one of my greatest joys is all the kids coming to our house to have their bicycles fixed. And believe me, they are not our children. Our youngest is, well, she'd get mad at me if I told you how old she is, but I'm going to tell you, she has her own children. They come here because, first of all, they know they're safe here. Second of all, they know that I have tools and will help them fix their bikes. You see, I don't only do it the first time. The second time I don't fix their bike, I help them or instruct them. The each one teach one method, I believe so strongly in, I try to share. When I see them bullying one another, something like happens, it stops pretty quickly. And now we don't have that in our neighborhood. We have young people who actually like and play with each other and do it in a way that, well, sometimes it gets pretty roughhoused in my front yard, but I try to help them maintain a healthy balance. Parental units are more than just your biological parents. You see, we're all parental units, no matter what our age is or stage. The second one I put up here about, having some instruction classes, but having this thought process that the consequences are real. That everything that we do, every choice we make, every decision we make has a consequence. And that in itself is a teaching moment all the time. I get on a bicycle and I don't know how to ride. The consequence is I'm going to fall off a couple times. Maybe get a skinned knee, an elbow. If I pick up a weapon, I need to know what that consequence of pulling the trigger is. One of my mentors many years ago, I remember at Cub Scout camp, he showed us exactly what a weapon did to a pumpkin. After that, I learned how to really handle a shotgun and a pistol. I'm not saying that's for everybody. Please don't misunderstand me. I'm just saying that visual of all the boys that were standing there, all of us understood that this was a dangerous thing and it was lethal. So when we stepped onto the range, there was a feeling of quiet. There was a listening to the ranger. There was no nonsense there. And as we grew up, we all had things in our cars and our trucks and things, and we all understood how they worked and what they were for. We looked at them as tools, not as playthings. My children grew up here in this house with all those type of opportunities. They were always here. At a very early age, I instructed them, quite frankly, what the consequences would be with those weapons. Both to their physical, when I whipped their butt. Oh, I'm not allowed to say that, am I? But consequences of what that could do. I believe we're not looking at consequences in the right way. I believe by handing everybody a trophy is just the wrong thing to teach. Oh, we're all winners. Well, we are all winners. But there has to be a team that wins and a team that loses. I don't know if any of you have ever been in a squared ring in a boxing match, but I guarantee you learn that there's a winner and there's a loser. And it's okay. The difference is learning how to take those losses and turn them into a positive piece. My grandfather told me that failure was the most important thing I could learn in my life, because the more I failed, the more I could learn. And the more I could learn, the more I could grow. And the more I would grow, the more I would go. And that really has sent me on a different platform. So, ladies and gentlemen, 3 things. 1, parents, be a parental unit. 2, take and teach about these choices. You know, teach about money. Teach how to take and make a simple meal. Let's take and work with everybody so we understand how to do this. And yes, I'm going to say that if you turn 18, you need to go in some kind of public service. It won't hurt you one dead blame bit. It just might turn you around. One of my best friends in the construction business, he was a young man who was in trouble all the time, but the judge was good to him. He told him he had a choice. He could join the Marines or he could go to jail. Went to Marines, has a great family to this day, has a great company. He believes in those type of things, and now I see his children being raised with a set of rules and obligations and morals and values. Ladies and gentlemen, leaders, if we're going to be true leaders in our nation today, we need to be thinking about how do we each individually put some of these things in place, and how can we help these young people move ahead in a positive manner. How do we talk to the middle age and maybe my age about how we can individually make the difference? And then actually take action. Put the action in attraction and make things happen. I'm going to encourage each of you to look inside yourself, to go to your churches and volunteer to instruct and teach and share. You see, it's more than about just owning your own company. I've enjoyed having my own company. I've had several of them now. I've enjoyed each and every one of them. But I've learned one thing. It's more than just me in a company. It's everyone that we employ, and it's everyone that we touch. That is the true meaning of working inside your community and nation. I see our time is running short, and I'm sorry if I've come off to a different situation for you today. But on behalf of myself, Dick Powell, and the whole Leadership Corner team, I do want to say thank you for being a part of our program today. Now, if you have any qualms about what's happened today, if you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate. Give me a call. 727-422-1833. Send me an email, dick@ewfw.org. Go to the website, spend some time, look around, www.ewfw.org. And when you're ready for me to come and put on a leadership opportunity about leadership and accountability at your location, with your company, with your organization, make sure you give us a call and you get on our program very, very quickly. We book up fast over the year, and I want to make sure that I can be there for you. So until next time, it's DW the Wrangler saying, ride hard, ride fast.